Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Lourdes.
Good morning. Good morning, Maria. Welcome back to Coaching Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lourdes Slafer.
And I'm Maria Sabio. And today, make sure you watch to the end of today's daily practices. We're tackling a challenge so many of us have faced. Me personally, faced it for a very long time, finally came to terms with it. But if you have issues dealing with anger towards others and you want to learn how to handle it wisely, this definitely is going to help you.
Yeah, and let's bring in common humanity, right? There probably isn't a single soul on this earth who hasn't, gone offline and just been angry and very, very reactive over some situation. So this is something that I think really applies to everyone. So that moment when someone really gets under your skin and you have that temptation to lash out or maybe hold a grudge. Maybe that's the strong urge. But there is a better way, and one that actually helps solve the problem instead of making it worse.
Yeah. So with stoicism and Marcus Aurelius, he gives us some pretty straightforward advice. Don't get angry at someone for what they can't control, like, a bad smell. Instead, use your reason, explain, communicate, and help them. If you're tired of anger causing pain in your relationships or your heart, this episode's really for you.
Yeah, I mean, anger often comes from feeling offended or powerless. And we see someone's behavior as disrespectful or wrong, and our emotions flare up, right? But anger rarely changes anything for the better. It's like getting mad at someone for something that's part of their nature or their circumstance, which is exactly what Marcus is pointing out.
Yeah. And psychology tells us anger is a secondary emotion. It's often masking fear, hurt, or frustration. So when we respond with anger, we might miss the real issue. And neurologically, anger triggers the amygdala. So the brain's alarm system is basically going off, and that hijacks our rational thinking. And most of us really have experienced that moment where we just, go offline. And I personally, I had anger issues for a very long time. And the thing is that working on my triggers, working on what Lourdes said, that hurt, that emotion that you're trying to avoid, that's what I needed to work on. I needed to work on my own triggers, my own, my own hurt, but feeling disrespected or feeling ignored. Like that was a real button for me. And it took a while, but once you learn how to validate yourself, you're not looking for external validation, and you understand that the person who says something to you, that's on them, that's their business, and it has nothing to do with me. Someone else can't invalidate me because my existence is the only validation that I need. And then obviously working on myself and being satisfied with who I am, as opposed to depending on others' opinions of who I am. So I learned to define myself. And it's like they say, if I can do it, I feel like anybody can do it. Once we learn how to validate ourselves and whatever other issue or constraint you have, then you can move forward. You can stop being angry towards somebody else in the present moment for something that is baggage from the past. And obviously, working with a coach, working with Lourdes or I would definitely help you get rid of that trigger, that anger that you have that perhaps is in some cases explosive.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that strikes out at me is that when we're triggered, right? When someone is pushing our buttons, when we feel activated or reactive about something that has occurred, something that someone else has done, it's our responsibility to look at our buttons. Like, what is that triggering in me? This is something that I need to look at. And you know, it's a matter of really investigating, getting curious, and looking at the story that is coming up, and you know, deactivating your own buttons, because no one can push your buttons if you don't have a button there. And so this is part of the work that Maria and I both do with our clients, is helping them to look at their triggers, their buttons, why they're being so reactive, and bringing it back to themselves. Because like Maria said, it's not about the other person necessarily. It's about what that person is bringing up in you, what is arising with you, and bringing awareness, and then just, you know, dissolving that is key, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, definitely. I just want to interject that you are potentially less successful in what you're doing, whether it's relationship or in personal relationships or in work, because you don't know how to pivot. Because when you aren't triggered by somebody, then now you stay focused on what really matters. And so when you get angry, now you're offline, right? And now you can't focus on what the real issue is. You can't focus on how to get your point across where other people are actually listening to what you're saying, as opposed to sitting back and watching you flare up, right? Because that flare up, they're not listening. They're going into their own cocoon, and they're not paying attention to what you have to say. You think you've delivered your message. No, you spoke out what you wanted to say, but the message didn't get through. And when you pivot, where you don't have those buttons, your message gets through, and you're actually communicating, and you're getting feedback, and you're able to progress instead of just being in the muck of that anger itself.
right, reacting with anger often usually cuts off the possibility for calm, clear communication and actual problem solving. Because if you're stuck, you know, being reactive, then you're not communicating, and you're not using all of your resources, because as Maria said, you've
You're
gone
offline.
offline, and
Yeah.
there's a different approach. You know, since both you and the other person have the capacity for reason, use yours to help awaken theirs. And this is where empathy and curiosity come in. Instead of reacting, try to understand why someone acts the way that they do.
Yeah, we all have the ability to pause, reflect, and challenge automatic reactions. We can choose to respond rather than react. This creates that space to calmly discuss the issue and explaining how a behavior affects you without blame or anger, or just like throwing up on somebody. It's about activating your rationality to engage rationality, opening up the doors to the communication and change, just as Lourdes was saying.
Yeah. And, you know, Marcus ends with a powerful reminder Be neither an actor nor a whore. And that means don't pretend or manipulate. Choose authenticity. In your relationships, authenticity is key. And, you know, be honest but kind, clear but gentle. And that opens trust.
Yeah, definitely. And Brene Brown says vulnerability is the birthplace of courage. It takes courage to speak up without anger and to listen without judgment. And this courage, this strengthens the relationships and fosters mutual growth. And really, it really fosters self-respect as well, and self-validation, self-compassion, and self-forgiveness. Because at that moment, when you're so vulnerable, you're choosing connection instead of fighting or running away.
Yeah. So, how do we cultivate this in daily life and practice reasoned, compassionate communication? Start by catching yourself early when you feel angry and take 3 deep breaths. Then name it. Just recognizing it helps you to pause. And then reflect on what might be causing your anger beneath the surface. And remind yourself that the other person, just like you, is fallible and capable of growth.
Right. And practice explaining your feelings calmly using a lot of I statements to express your feeling without accusing. Um, say statements like I feel hurt when, or I feel dismissed when. Use that I. And if possible, have a gentle conversation with someone about a conflict, aiming for understanding uh, over blame. Invite dialogue. Ask open-ended questions that help the other person reflect.
Right. And, remember, this is a practice, it's not perfection. So be gentle with yourself as you grow. And we want to leave you with this quote from Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters.
Yeah. And just to come back to Brene Brown, holding onto anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Use your reason and kindness. It will help your heart and your relationships. We'd really love to hear from you. So maybe you can respond to this question. When was the last time you chose calm over anger? Share your story with us and help inspire other people.
Thanks so much for being here. We're walking this path right alongside you. Take care of your mind, take care of yourself, and support our work by liking, following, and subscribing. We'll see you next time.